Okay, the first step that I'm going to do is go ahead and hinge all of the surfaces. And again, we didn't do this step because we know a lot of guys like to use different glues and also want to know that they did this step themselves, which I can understand. So we went ahead and saved this step. It doesn't take long. The holes have been pre-drilled, so all you got to do is glue them in. The first step I'm going to do though is I melted some Vaseline by microwaving a bowl of water and then putting the Vaseline into that bowl of water. Vaseline won't heat in the microwave directly. The first step you got to do before you start gluing is to cover these hinges on the pin. So if you get glue in there, it doesn't bind up on you. You can crack it free if it happens, but it's just a little easier to do this just to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place. So just bend it one way, dip it just a little bit on that side, spin it around, and then dip it just slightly on the other side. It just barely has to touch, and do both sides, and that'll protect you. Okay guys, so I've got all my pin hinges dipped in Vaseline to keep them from the glue from adhering to them and jamming the pin. And so now we're going to begin gluing all our hinges. So all we're going to do is we're going to put the hinges in one side first, mixing up some 15-minute epoxy is what I'm going to use. And you'll put the pin in, make sure that it's spinning the proper direction for the hinge, for the surface that you're working on. Be very careful not to put it in the wrong direction. And then you'll mix in your epoxy, put it on one side, and then put epoxy on the other half of the hinge, join the surfaces together, and then make sure that it has enough movement while pushing it tightly together, but that it can go just about bevel to bevel. So I'm going to begin that, and I'll show you when I'm done. So I epoxied one side of the hinge on the elevator surface here and put the hinge in, made sure that it's tilting in the proper direction. Have some paper towels and alcohol ready, so when you're done with the second half you can just wipe up the excess if there are any gets on the elevator and whatnot. I'm just going to coat the second half, putting a good amount on, but it doesn't need to be sloppy because it will spread out and catch on these little ribs on the hinges. And working one side to the other, line up one hole at a time. Okay, and again, you just want to push this tightly together, keep it held together, and then slowly bend it bevel to bevel to make sure that it's going to have full clearance for you. So you want to get just to where the bevel is about to touch, and then you can let go there. So it's going to have a slight space in between, but it should be probably less than 1/16 of an inch. Do the same procedure on all the other surfaces, and we'll move on to the next step. Again, you might get a little bit of excess, which you can just wipe up with some paper towels and alcohol. I've got all my surfaces hinged and glued now. So the next step that I'm going to move on to, and you can see this has free movement with as small of a gap as I can get away with. So again, double check that before you let it cure. Since we've got the glue out already, the next step that we're going to move on to is gluing in our fiberglass double truss horns. The first step that I'm going to do is, you can see on these horns there are several notches, I guess kind of measurements more or less. The bottom tab I'm going to take off so that the horn meets flush in to the surface without wanting to punch through the other side on the coating. So just cut off the last tab, and then we'll begin gluing. So I'm going to do all of them right now and then get back to the gluing part. Okay guys, I've notched off all of the fiberglass horns so that there's only I guess 1, 2, 3, 4 of the little ridges showing. So I cut off the last one so that this will fit into the surfaces without punching through the coating on the opposite side. So now we're going to go ahead and install this into our surface. And you can see there's 2 notches in each surface of the fiberglass horns, and install them so that they are facing, leaning in towards the hinge line. Just like that. So that way the the pivot point is going to end up being right over the hinge line. Now before you do that, go ahead and sand each side of the horn to give the epoxy a little better contact point, and then glue some, put some epoxy on each side of the hinge, slide them in, and let that cure. Project. We have our surfaces hinged and glued, all surfaces. We also have all our control horns glued in on our ailerons, on our elevator, and also on our rudder. And again, being sure that when you mount these servo horns, that they are tilting in towards the hinge line, just as you see here, so that the pivot point of the hinge is going to be right over that control horn. Once we've done that, now we can move on to installing servos.